Welcome to this discussion on international bilateral issues, and we were still in the discussion on United Nations, and we have talked about some of the issues and the need for restructuring of the UN Security Council, the main organ. That is what I was discussing in the other other topic, right. Now, today the first topic I would like to discuss is related to the efforts for restructuring so far. Okay. Efforts for restructuring so far. The UN Security Council is the main body, that is what we know very well, and its restructuring, the Security Council restructuring is everything. So, that is the focus which we are talking about, right. So, the UN Security Council after 1963, after the reforms, it has 15 members, 5 permanent and 10 non-permanent members. And these 5 permanent members have veto power, and this 10 non-permanent has no veto. So, that is how the things are happening. Now, when the UN completed 50 years, that is in 1994, for the 50th session, there was a discussion and demand for reorganizing and restructuring the UN Security Council. In fact, when the 50th session was approaching, and this is the time, please remember, immediately after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and it was immediately after the 1991 collapse of Soviet Union, right. It is immediately after the collapse. So, and the US was the sole superpower, yeah. So, the US was the sole superpower, that is what I was talking, and the Bill Clinton was the president of US at that time, Bill Clinton, the president of US. So, and Bill Clinton wanted to show to the world that he is very serious about reforms, and he is a responsible leader of the superpower. That is what he wanted. Bill Clinton always wanted to prove to the world that he is a very responsible leader, and he tried to behave also. In fact, initial years of US, the behavior after the collapse of the Soviet Union was quite responsible, and US wanted to prove that they are a responsible superpower, and that is what Bill Clinton was trying to do at that time. So, he initiated the process of reforms for the 50th session. Okay, for the 50th session, Bill Clinton initiated reforms. Okay, so, and he wanted to ensure that reforms are taking place. He initiated reforms, and his proposal at that time, the 1994 proposal, was that there should be a limited expansion of Security Council. Okay, he wanted a limited expansion of the Security Council. So, if you join late, you cannot ask me what is the topic you are teaching. Okay, I mean, tumhara ye to bimari hai. So, please do not ask such questions. So, efforts for restructuring the UN Security Council so far, that is the discussion I am doing, and the Clinton initiated, and he wanted a limited expansion, that is what he was asking for, and in the UN Security Council as a permanent member, he wanted to add Japan and Germany. he wanted to add Japan and Germany as the additional members or other in the as permanent members with veto power. With veto power. So, his aim was to add the Japan and Germany as members with veto power. Now, in fact, there the Clinton's argument was that one, it is to do justice to the Axis power, and also the another big point he said was that the Japan and Germany are major contributors of UN finance. One second, I will just get you the actual figures. Okay, as far as the various countries which are giving. Okay, so let me just so how the various countries are contributing. Okay, so the contribution received, for example, the regular budget of the UN. Okay. So, in fact, the 35 members, I mean, in fact, if you look at that way, the US is the main contributor. One second. So, no, I made a mistake. Just a minute. Okay, I mean, I will just get you the figure because the US claim was that Japan and Germany are a major contributors. So, because of that, they should be given more responsibility. That was the idea behind the whole thing. Okay. So, let me just yeah. See, as far as as far as the funding is concerned, let me just give you even 2020 figures. Let me give you so that you will get an idea. 2020 figures as far as funding. The US is the number one country now who is funding the maximum. Around 22%. Okay. See, 22% the US is contributing. China is contributing 12%. Then Japan 8.5%. Then Germany 6%. 6% of the total budget. Then UK 4.5, France 4.4%. Then comes all others. I mean, in fact, if you look at even Russia, it's only 2.4%, and other members. I mean, India 0.8%. You may be interested in knowing India 0.8% of the budget. So, that is it. So, the the UN budget for 2020 was 3.1 billion, just for your understanding. For 2020, the UN budget was $3.1 billion. Okay. So, then there are peacekeeping force funding is separate, peacekeeping force funding is separate, but otherwise. So, even now, and if you look that way, except the China is one big contributor, otherwise you can see the US, then Japan, Germany, of course, UK, France, etc. But China is also contributing around 12% of the the budget of this. I mean, the Chinese investment or Chinese contribution has increased substantially in the last couple of decades. Okay. Otherwise, the Chinese investment contribution was also 3-4%, not more than that. Anyway, so but the US argument, now I am just coming back. So, this is the 2020 figures of funding as far as the budget is concerned. This is the budgetary support. Now, the argument put forward by the US at that time was that Japan and Germany, one, they are the defeated Axis power in one side, and the second point is they are a major contributors of the UN finance, and that is why they wanted the US wanted them to be added. They Clinton or rather this US proposal did not include any developing country member. The US proposal did not include any developing country member. So, naturally, the developing countries did not agree to this proposal, because ultimately this has to be moved in the Security Council as well as in the UN General Assembly. At least 2/3 of the members, 2/3 support in the UN General Assembly is required, then only things can move. So, the developing countries at that time insisted that this proposal can move ahead only if you are including the developing country members also. So, things did not move, and 2/3 majority in the General Assembly was never going to happen, because Asia and Africa put together so many developing countries, and they were not willing to accept this kind of a proposal at that time. In fact, there was a commission appointed during that time for reforms in the UN. Okay, there was a commission appointed called Carlson's Commission. Okay, a commission appointed at that time, which was called the Carlson's Commission. So, this commission at that time gave a proposal for the reforms in the UN Security Council, and the Carlson's Commission suggested at that time that the UN Security Council should be expanded to make it, say, 25 members, 25, some said that 26, and the idea was that the permanent members should be expanded from 5 to 10, and the non-permanent should be expanded from 10 to 15, some suggested that it can be even 16. So, either 25 or 26 member UN Security Council. And in the permanent members, Carlson's Commission recommended that there can be 5 more members to be added, and it included, so to correct the anomaly of Axis and Allied power, it suggested Germany and Japan, and then from the developing country, one developing country each from each continent. So, one from Latin America, so it is Brazil, another from Africa, and it was at that time it was Nigeria, because Nigeria is the largest country from Africa, and one country from Asia, that is India. So, there was a discussion of, there was a suggestion, or rather there is a commission appointed by the then UN Secretary General, which is on Carlson's Commission, and Carlson's Commission recommended that the UN Security Council can be expanded. And as far as the veto, there may not be no veto, also a possibility, but it was not very clear at that time. Okay, even there could have been a situation where there is no veto also for the new members, only the old members may have, may or may not. These things cannot be, they can always be discussed. I mean, because I do not think many countries would have agreed for giving veto to 5 more countries, because veto is a historic baggage. Okay, that is the way the organization was created. At that time, veto is there. So, that is of course a discussable or negotiable issue anyway. So, this total, that was on a discussion at that time. Since Clinton's idea was not to accept the Carlson's Commission, he only talked about a limited expansion, and developing countries did not agree. So, the expansion plan could not move forward, because any expansion plan requires the support of the UN General Assembly by 2/3 majority, and that is not possible, and the developing countries vehemently opposed. So, this expansion plan could not move forward. So, it was shelved. But again, so that was in 1994. when in 2004, when the UN completed 60 years, 60 years of UN, at that time, there was no, see, in 1994, the move came from the most powerful country, that is the US itself. But in 2004, the US president was George W. Bush. And this is immediately after the September 11, 2001. I mean, of course, the war on terror was going on. The American focus was mainly, the fighting going on in Afghanistan, the fighting going on in Iraq. So, the US and the George Bush had no interest in the UN or the UN Security Council. In fact, George Bush, had no faith in the UN. Please remember, in 2003, George Bush, that is US and UK, attacked Iraq. The US and UK attacked Iraq, and they had no faith in the system, faith in the UN itself. And in fact, that is a blatant violation of all norms when they attacked Iraq. And the United Nations Security Council or UN did not do anything, they could not do anything. I was mentioning about the failure part. So, George Bush had scant respect or no respect. George W. Bush had no respect for the UN. So, he was not interested in expansion of the Security Council or strengthening of the UN. There was no discussion at all from his side. So, the US was not at all interested in dealing or rather doing anything for strengthening the UN. So, at that time, since the US did not show any interest, the potential candidates, when the US did not show any interest, the potential candidates who thought they can become a member of the UN Security Council, the potential candidates like Germany, Japan, Brazil and India, we joined together, because we were in 1994, Germany and Japan's name was proposed, but it could not move forward. And the Carlson's commission definitely talked about Brazil and India, and Germany, Japan was always there. So, we are considered to be the potential candidates who may enter into the Security Council as a permanent member in future. These potential 4 members from Africa, they could not add anybody because there was difference of opinion whether it should be Nigeria or South Africa and things like that. Okay. There was African countries, there was no major consensus. So, Nigeria, South Africa, all were claimants, and it is generally considered only 1 seat for Africa. If there is only 1 seat for Africa, then who can be there? There is no clarity. So, we did not add anyone from Africa. These 4 countries started a campaign for expansion or restructuring the UN security. So, these 4 countries were nicknamed as the G4 countries. Germany, Japan, Brazil and India were declared as we were called as the group of 4 countries who wanted reforms in 2004. So, reforms in the UN Security Council, and in the UN in general. So, G4 countries started a campaign. See, 94, the campaign was done by the most powerful country in the world, that is the US. But in 2004, the campaign is done by 4 members who think or rather who thought they have a chance to become a Security Council member as a permanent one. So, the G4 started the campaign, and the US naturally, and George Bush was not interested. This is even before 2004, this is even before the Indo-US nuclear deal. Indo-US nuclear deal. And George Bush was in a different frame of mind altogether, and he was not at all interested in the expansion. And moreover, his ideas about the world itself, he was walking out of many of the international treaties. The way Donald Trump walked out of many international treaties, even George Bush was walking out of many international treaties. So, when this idea came the world, we were trying to campaign, all the G4 countries were campaigning, various countries expressed their view. For example, this P5 countries, first of all, the P5 countries should agree, there should not be any veto. There should not be any veto. All P5 should agree. Then the then Security Council, 15 members are there, the 10 non-permanent members are also there, they should also agree. That means 9 out of 15 should agree. And then the UN General Assembly 2/3 support should be there. See, 193 members are there, 193 is 2/3 means almost 130, 129, 130 members out of 193 should support. So, it is a big ask, we were campaigning. Meantime, in the UN Security Council, UK, France and even Russia, they have said that in various ways and in varying degrees, they said they have no problem in expansion. They have no problem in expansion, and if a resolution comes up, these 3 countries will support, all 3 will support. And meantime, the G4 campaign, please remember, the G4 campaign was for expanding the Security Council, the permanent seat from and including the G4 countries as the permanent members. And the G4, while campaigning, we have also said that this expansion, or we should be included as permanent members of the UN Security Council without veto. We gave, see, when we are campaigning, we ourselves are campaigning, and if you show that we need veto also. So, naturally, many countries or many people will think that these people are power hungry, that is why they are asking for it. So, our campaign made it very clear that we are okay by entering into Security Council without veto, because changed circumstances, yes, veto was there for the permanent members, but still we are not asking for to make it to show to the world that we are concerned about the the progress of the world. We are doing it for the benefit of the rest of the world. We are reforming Security Council and the UN so that we can live in a better world. And we have voluntarily said that we do not want veto. So, we proposed that our campaign is without veto. Please expand, add us, but without veto. So, we have asked for without veto, this so that our proposal is more acceptable. The idea behind the without veto is our proposal is more acceptable to the other country, because 2/3 support in the General Assembly we need. So, that is why we have done it. So, the campaign was without veto. And meantime, China said they have no problem, because their views are very important now. 3 of the Security Council members said that UK, France and Russia, they said they have no problem. China said that they have no problem with Germany and Brazil. India, China at that time, our relationship was improving, and India at that time, China said India is a good candidate. China did not say whether it will support or oppose. India is a good candidate. But about Japan, because the Second World War memories are still there, because Japan colonized China for almost 50 years. See, right from 1895, a substantial area of China was captured by Japan, and the Japan was behaved like a colonial master, and China was under the control of, many parts of China was under the control of Japan, and the Japanese colonial masters were very nasty, and they were very brutal colonial masters, even at least Britishers, and they did not violate the human rights of Indians that much. But compared to what Japan was doing in China, China had a very bad memories of Japan's what you call Japan as an occupation force or a colonial force, and their animosity still continues. China-Japan relations are not smooth even today. They have serious objection. China has serious problems with Japan, because when Japan has China feels that their occupation by Japan from 1895 till 1945, almost 50 years, that was one of the I will say China always feel they want to forget that period, because that kind of atrocities were done by the Japanese forces in China at that time. So, for China, Japan is enemy number 1 even now. So, even though they have very good trade relations and all, that is another thing. When it comes to money, they forget this, but otherwise they cannot see eye to eye. So, China has declared that they will oppose Japan, and they will veto. Even the China has said that if the Japanese name comes, China will veto the Japan's name. That is what China declared. So, as far as Germany and Brazil, China said they have no problem. About India, China did not explicitly say anything, because our relationship was slowly improving. But as far as Japan is concerned, China very clearly said they will veto their name. So, obviously, if it comes, China would have been vetoing, we do not know. Some bargaining would have taken place there. Then comes the position of the US is very important, because if US agrees, then only something can happen. USA has said, USA's position as far as Brazil is concerned, US very categorically said there is no need for another country from the Americas in the permanent as a permanent member in the Security Council. No need for another member from Americas. Whether it is Latin America, whether it is North America, it does not make any difference. Brazil, I am already there, your presence is not required. So, US rejected the proposal that Brazil can be one of the members, saying that it is not required, I am already there. Then comes the name of Germany. US said that Germany, because by this time the biggest problem was that when the US wanted to attack Iraq in 2003, Germany opposed tooth and nail. Germany was the most vociferous, Germany was the most visible opponent of US in its effort to attack Iraq, and Germany is a member of NATO, but Germany very clearly and openly opposed the US idea of attacking Iraq. So, because of that, US-Germany relations were not so good at that time. Earlier in 94, Clinton proposed Germany's name, but now because of that, the US declared that Germany is not fit enough to be a Security Council member. Okay. Germany is not fit enough to be a Security Council member. So, the US rejected Brazil, the US rejected Germany also. That is mainly because of the relationship at that time. The German president at that time, sorry, the German chancellor at that time, Mr. Schroeder, and the US president at that time, our George W. Bush, they did not have a good equation, mainly on the issue of the Iraq war, second Iraq war, Gulf war, second Gulf war. So, Germany's name was also rejected by the US. Then came Japan. The US said yes, Japan is a good candidate, and Japan, according to US, Japan fits the bill. So, US said they have no problem with Japan, but China said they have serious problem with Japan. Then about India, US did not say anything at that time, but instead the US indicated that they are okay in the expansion if required one developing country member one developing country member can be there And since they talked about one developing country member and having a sufficient track record in democracy, human rights, etc., like that they said. So, when they indicated like that, India felt that they have no problem, the US has no problem with Indian name, okay, or if Indian name is proposed or India's name is proposed, the US may not oppose, or rather they said that they are okay with a developing country. So, if you are talking about a developing country and if you are talking about a country with democracy, and if a country with a, by and large comparatively okay a track record in democracy and all, definitely and human rights, definitely India will fit into the bill. It is a emerging economy, everything we know. So, it was felt at that time that US may not oppose Indian name, or rather they may not be openly promoting our name, but definitely they will not oppose. But Brazil and Germany, they have declared that they will oppose. Japan, absolutely no problem. So, that is how the position was there. So, meantime, in the US as well as China, they have reservations about some of the members, but they were not, but both were not interested in the expansion. Both US and China, because of the opposition to some of the members within the G4, both US and China were not interested in the expansion. So, what they did is, meantime, the position of African Union became very important, because 54 members are there in the African Union. There were 54 members in the African Union, and the position of the African Union became very, very crucial. So, there is a meeting of the African Union, and both US and China put pressure in African Union to do something such a way that the G4 proposal is defeated, and African Union fell into that trap. In the backroom negotiations or backroom pressure by US and China, it seems that is what the international experts were telling at that time. Now, after the meeting in the African Union, they gave two conditions. They said reforms in the UN Security Council should be there, but they put two conditions. Number one, African Union said that in the expanded Security Council, Africa should get 2 seats. Africa should get 2 permanent seats, not 1. So, earlier it was talked about that African can have 1, now they are saying there should be 2 permanent seats, and the number 2 condition they said is the African members should get veto, with veto. They insisted that these 2 members should get veto power, whereas G4 members were talking about expansion of the Security Council without veto power. But African members insisted that, African Union insists that they should be given with veto. So, naturally, if 2 countries have to come and if they are demanding veto and if G4 is demanding expansion without veto, so naturally this kind of a proposal cannot go together. So, because of the African Union's insistence that 2 members should be added from Africa with veto power, there was a lot of confusion. The G4 members realized that it will be very difficult to convince even G4 supporters also about the expansion with veto power. So, because of this confusion, the G4 decided to withdraw the proposal. So, the G4 decided to withdraw the proposal to expand the Security Council. The way they were proposing, G4 members should be added without veto power. So, they decided to withdraw the proposal, and the expansion idea got shelved or rather got stopped because of the disagreement between African Union and the G4 relating to the expansion with veto power or without veto power. So, the expansion proposal got dropped there. But during the campaign, one good thing happened was that, see, first one big requirement is in the Security Council, the UN, the permanent P5, we have found that among the 4 countries who were looking for expanding, India at that time, there was a general feeling that India may not attract any veto. India was the only country where no country talked about any veto, or rather India might have crossed without veto. Without veto means the permanent 5 would not have vetoed our proposal, and in the General Assembly India could have easily got 2/3 support, or rather 130 out of 193 would have supported. It was a pleasant surprise for us because of our goodwill. See, the Nehruvian, the leadership right from that time. See, the African countries and many of the Asian countries still have good memories and good feeling about India, and not because after the 1990s we have done something or anything. The old Nehruvian leadership, the people still has that, the non-aligned movement and things like that, the India's leadership in that has played a very crucial role in having a favorable opinion about India from many countries in the world, especially the African countries, the Pacific countries, many of the Asian countries. So, anyway, it was a pleasant surprise for India that we might have managed this 130 votes very easily in the General Assembly, whereas Germany, Japan and all would have found it quite difficult to manage the support. So, whatever it is, ultimately this resolution of the G4 was completely dropped. The expansion program did not move forward. So, 60 years nothing happened. 2014 70 years came, nothing happened, no proposal, nothing. In 2020 when the 75 years of the UN, now it is a pandemic time anyway, there is no time, and moreover the US is led by Donald Trump, and he has no interest in the UN or Security Council or expansion or strengthening of the UN, nothing. So, naturally no movement forward subsequently. And please remember, this kind of an expansion or strengthening of the UN and all can take place only if the world leaders, the powerful countries in the world, come together. If there is an interest in them, see, we could create UN as an institution because of the top 5 countries in the world at that time during the Second World War, that is the US, the UK, the France, Russia, China, all of them wanted to create this organization. Today, no such interest, even in Afghanistan. Why there is no peace, or other peace is not moving forward the way things are, nobody wants to take the responsibility and move forward in the peace movement, the peace process. So, the same thing here, unless the powerful countries in the world, especially the US, unless the US takes a lead, it is very unlikely that there can be any reforms in the UN. UN reforms are critically dependent on the US position. It is also critically dependent on the US equation with China, because China is the de facto number 2, and Russia, because the relationship between US, China, Russia and all, it is not at all friendly right now. It is a very acrimonious relationship between them. When you have such a time, it is highly unlikely that we can expand the UN Security Council or any reforms can take place. So, in 2004 when the G4 movement took place, the only heartening thing for India is against India the least resistance, or rather each country would have been independently or individually voted, they would have been voting for each country separately. In that voting in General Assembly, India could have easily got 130 votes, and when it comes to Security Council, especially the permanent members, against India there was least resistance at that time. So, that is a happy thing, because that is the goodwill, that is the accumulation of the goodwill we got right from the 1950s. We should be happy about that, because even today there is a goodwill about India among the world countries, many of the countries, especially the African countries and Asian countries, we have a goodwill. That should be a happy thing to talk about. Anyway, so that is the situation as far as the expansion, but we could not. And meantime, just one more point I would like to talk here is, during this plan or during this idea of expansion, the countries like Pakistan, they were not sitting quiet. They felt that this is something, if the expansion takes place the way it is happening, then they will never get a chance to do anything, because there are many countries like Pakistan in India, in Asia, or Indonesia. They are all big countries, but they can never, if one seat has to be added from Asia, naturally Pakistan will not be there, Indonesia will not be there, Saudi Arabia will not be there, or even countries like Malaysia, or even South Korea for that matter. These are all big economies. So, they know that they can never stand in front of India, in the sense, because of the population, democracy, everything. If one country is to be chosen from Asia, naturally India's name will come first. Similarly, in Latin America, Brazil is number 1, but countries like Argentina, Chile, they felt that this, or even Mexico for that matter, they feel that if there is an expansion, Brazil will get the first choice. They can never come in the forefront, or rather they will never get a chance. And say in Europe also, Germany's name is coming, but Italy was very upset. Italy felt that they can never get a chance. So, there were many countries surrounding, like for India, the opponents were Pakistan, Indonesia, even Saudi Arabia for that matter. In Africa again, you are talking about 2 seats also, Nigeria and South Africa, you are coming, Egypt felt that they are left out. So, there are many countries, even Turkey, another country which felt that they will never get a chance, not in in Latin America situation, Asia we can say Turkey. So, like this, there are many countries who felt that this kind of an expansion is not the solution. So, these countries, the second rank countries, or rather those countries who felt that they can never get a chance, like Pakistan, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, South Korea, Turkey, Mexico, all these countries joined together, or rather they started discussing each other what to do, because India, China, India, Japan, Germany, Brazil, and maybe even South Africa, all these countries are talking about expanding and becoming a permanent member in the Security Council. But these countries like Pakistan or Indonesia or Saudi Arabia or Turkey, Mexico and all, who can never become a permanent member in this kind of a definition, they all joined together, and this joining or this informal grouping, they were known as the Coffee Club. Okay. They all joined together across a coffee and started discussing what to do. How will you, because they know that they cannot get a chance if this kind of an expansion take place from 5 to 10. Naturally, their name will never come into picture, but at the same time, they are not so bad countries. I mean, they are slightly smaller than the say Mexico, sorry, smaller than Brazil or India and all, but otherwise they are also quite big economies and good maybe many of them are good democracies. And they all finally joined together to form a group called Uniting for Consensus. Otherwise they are known as Coffee Club, or they are known as Uniting for Consensus. They opposed this kind of an expansion, and in fact they even suggested, or rather a former Prime Minister of Thailand, he was appointed to study, and there was a proposal. In fact, he suggested, or rather the Uniting for Consensus suggested that there should not be an expansion of the permanent member. Instead, so there can be, say, a P5 should continue, say, with veto, because everybody knows that it is very difficult to say that you withdraw the veto and all, but they insisted that after the permanent 5, the 5 members, there should be a new category called semi-permanent members. Semi-permanent members, and these semi-permanent members can be selected maybe from the top 20, the rest 20 countries, the 20 influential countries of the world, maybe in terms of population, in economy, etc., all categories you can put, say the next 20, like G20, the top 20 economies of the world. something like that, and they can be given a 4-year term. So, the semi-permanent members are those countries who are economically, population wise, or even size wise, they are the top 20, the rest after the top 5, these 5 are already there, the next 20 countries in terms of economy, population, etc. They can be, they can be given maybe, say 10 seats. That numbers can always be discussed and negotiated, there is no issue, maybe 5 to 10, whatever be the number of seats can be there, because they are the top 20 countries who are the influence. See, because 193 countries are there, but there are so many countries which are too small to talk about. The Vatican City, it is only 1.5 square kilometer, they are also a country. There are so many island nations in say Maldives, a few hundred or a few thousand people, or say Bhutan. So, there are so many countries like that who are too small to talk about, their decision or no decision does not make any difference for the world. So, the semi-permanent idea is give seats to them and a 4-year term, and they can be very regularly be participating in this, so that all these countries can be there as members. I mean, one or other term they can easily get. And then the non-permanent, the way it is going on, it can be increased from this 10 to, or the semi-permanent can be I think semi-permanent idea at that time they talked about 6, I think 6 seats, and the non-permanent members who are 10 can be extended to 15, and the total number will become permanent 5, semi-permanent say 6, non-permanent maybe 15, the total will become to 26, something like that. So, there this idea of say 6 seats for this 20 countries in rotation after 4 years and every 2 years, maybe there will be rotation of that. So, there will be enough chance for member countries to become what you call to participate. I mean, these semi-permanent members will be there without veto. No veto. See, veto is something, an extraordinary thing which happened because of the Second World War realities and the way the UN as an institution was created. It played its role, no doubt regarding this. Now, we cannot expect. So, this without veto. So, this is, I mean, of course, a country like India who has a chance to become a non-permanent member may oppose this idea, but this kind of an idea will have an overwhelming support in the among the world countries, definitely there is no doubt regarding this. So, if at all a proposal comes, I think this kind of a proposal where a permanent 5 with veto will not be expanded, and if you are talking about a semi-permanent or so, maybe the rest 20 countries, the top 20 other than these 5. So, that means the top 25 countries will be doing, and these 25 countries will have maybe 90% of the population of the world or 80% of the population of the world, and they may be controlling most of the economy, and all those criteria can always be there. So, this kind of a proposal may get maximum support in future. So, this Uniting for Consensus came up with this idea of semi-permanent seats, which is not a bad idea. Okay, considering from India, and since India had a chance to enter into a UN Security Council as a permanent member, we may say that okay, I mean this should not be there, but otherwise this semi-permanent is not a bad idea. It is more democratic and it can make UN a bit more democratic institution and things like that, even though as I was mentioning earlier also, the aim of the UN was not to promote democracy or not to make it democratic in any case. Anyway, so that is how the proposal for reform, but most importantly one last point about the expansion, my argument here is very simple. This expansion and strengthening of the UN can happen only if the most powerful countries in the world, especially the US in the present circumstance, or along with US countries like China or even Russia, they all should take initiative And the US role is very crucial. We need to have a very powerful and forward looking and a very a visionary US president is a must. Unless a visionary US president comes to power. See, this is a point you should always understand. FDR, Franklin D. Roosevelt was a visionary. He was one of the all time great American presidents. Even Woodrow Wilson had his own vision about the world. That is why the League of Nations were created. Only after, see, you cannot have a reforms and vision and all if people like Donald Trump becomes the president of the US. Absolutely no chance, because he cannot even think beyond America. He has to think as a global leader. See, even in the pandemic, just see, had the US been ruled by a visionary leader, he would have taken the lead for even protecting the world from this pandemic. He should have been taking the lead to help the people of the world. He should have been taking the US with the help of the UN and all, should have been moving forward to find a vaccine for this, and how to supply the vaccine across the globe. The US should have been taking the lead. But unfortunately today what is happening, they are only talking about their own vaccine. That is also not very clear. There also the Trump talks about how to ensure the vaccine for certain states who are supported Republicans. Nonsense which is going on in the US also, and the US has become the biggest victim of this kind of a pandemic because of lack of leadership. Anyway, so that is about the UN reform.